everybody, to Navigating Change, the podcast from Teibel Inc. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm joined by Howard Teibel, and it sounds, I hear students. Is this you? Are you burying yourself in the role here?
How can you tell that they're students?
I hear laughing and happiness, and I hear it's like lunchtime giddiness.
Do you know why they're laughing?
Why are they laughing?
Because the bills get sent directly to their parents. That's why they're laughing, because they're sitting at this wonderful campus. They've got I'm at CU Boulder right now, and the food here is spectacular, and it's a beautiful day here. So, what is there not to be happy about? They're just not thinking about, what am I going to do in a year?
Have you been to the Alfred Packer Grill? You know where that is?
No.
I used to cook there. I was a line chef there.
Is your name? I think you had a sandwich there.
I did. We've talked about this. I think.
Yes.
I want you to go order the Pete Wright. See if it's still there.
The Pete Wright. Okay, I'm going to check that out. That would be hysterical.
It's good. It's got Russian dressing on it. It's fantastic. It's on a bagel.
See, the question is, did your sandwich transform or disrupt the way they used to do it?
Ooh, I saw what you just did there. I saw what you just did.
Nice.
That was fantastic. Yeah. We are talking about, actually, you just lobbed a grenade at me. You sent me this article that says we need to talk about this. The Undoing of Disruption by Evan Goldstein in the Chronicle. And we're going to talk about that first. You should head over to teibelinc.com. You should get to know us a little bit better. You can subscribe to the show for free, either on iTunes or by email, and get the show delivered, get notice of the show delivered straight to your inbox. We would love it if you would do that and connect with us at Howard Teibel on Twitter or at Pete Wright on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. So there you go. All right, that said, the Undoing of Disruption. We're talking, this is an article that takes on Clay Christensen's Disruptive Innovation. Yes? Why do you want to talk about this today?
Well, I read it, and this has weaved its way from the corporate world. Clay Christensen, as a Harvard professor, and he came out with this disruptive innovation concept in the late 80s, and it has really gotten its roots to represent in the corporate space what happens when a technology gets moved out. There's a really nice, simple description of a disruptive innovation. Typically, inferior invention eventually crowds out a better product because it's cheaper, more convenient, and for many customers, good enough. So you take out product, you put in programs and services, whether it's classes, you take out customers, you put in students. And this has made its way into higher education, and Clay Christensen has been considered the thought leader in trying to drive a recognition that things like online education is not only going to transform higher education, but as he claimed at one point, and I don't have the exact statistics, it is going to, in the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to see anywhere between 30 and 50% of the schools, and again, I don't know the exact percentage, but I've heard very high numbers from him, that will eventually no longer exist because they will be crowded out by the cheaper, less effective, but more embraced technology, and this has become sort of the mantra as we try to drive change in higher education. And now you got this article where it was only a matter of time, right, before somebody came out and the Chronicle said, listen, we've got this guy that wrote this article that says, looking at these 77 examples from Christensen, these do not line up with this theory. So I think this is an important conversation to point to, whether it be being rigorous about the term disruptive innovation and when we should be using it and when we shouldn't be using it.
When I think about it from an academic perspective, when I think of sort of disruption in the classroom, I mean, we have lots of examples of what it means to be disruptive in the classroom, and how technology has allowed us to, flip the classroom and really challenge students on their expectations of what they get when they walk in the classroom. And we're experiencing that not just in higher ed, but in elementary and middle school. Things are changing changing in the way students are engaged in the classroom. I think it's pretty safe to say that there are educators out there that are really working to disrupt what the student experience looks like. What is your assessment as you look at this with regard to administrative leadership? Do you think we have embraced what disruption is in terms of the legacy of higher ed, of campuses?
I think we've taken sort of a bird's eye view at this, and that's what I mean by the difference of looking at it superficially versus looking at it critically. In many ways, I think the concepts behind it. I'm working with a college president who read one of Clay's books and used it as a way to build a story to try and push academic and administrative leaders to take more seriously that things are changing. And here is an example of something that we should be anticipating, a less effective, cheaper option. And again, the strongest example is online learning that should wake faculty up to say, all right, what do we do about this? And I think in some cases, it's been an effective way to get people to look at the question of how do we accelerate change? At the same time, there's a whole population of people that don't buy into this, partially because they don't think that even the inferior product would ever be embraced at the level. Now, at the same time, it is it is weaving its way into our higher ed culture, and I think that the best use of this concept is this idea that can we anticipate a coming change that we should prepare ourselves for. Kaplan University getting better at driving kids through their programs, potentially creating credentialing or certificates or badges that then allow them to turn around and use that to get a good job. There was no question you could frame that as a disruption. And the question is this concept one of these things that's going to continue to grow, or is it sort of a fad that is going to sort of die out?
I think the real challenge here, and this is comes from some experience. One of the lines from the piece that Christensen says, he half-jokingly asked the audience to pray for Harvard Business School, where he's a professor, and which has so far not heeded his advice to disrupt itself. Quote, the low end today, he warned, mentioning outfits like the University of Phoenix, is the leader of tomorrow. Now, speaking specifically of University of Phoenix, this is an institution that it's from its inception was a campus-based program, and over the course of about 5 years disrupted itself to the point where it completely upended and became predominantly known as an online educator. That is what University of Phoenix did. Whatever you think of the reputation of the institution, what they did was change the way large-scale providers of education can pace the degree of change that they introduce into the market. They are a non-trivial player when you look at this idea of disruption. And are we seeing that kind of infrastructure disruption? Are we challenging ourselves in the traditional ed perspective? Are we challenging ourselves to think critically about what disruption could mean, or are we just saying we're being disrupted?
Well, I love that you weaved in that quote, because this is a different take on this. This is Clay Christensen challenging academic leaders to look at itself and say, can we put in place alternatives that will disrupt the traditional model of the sage on the stage and the students sitting there just taking notes and flipping the classroom idea rather than waiting for others to do it? I think that's a brilliant, important question, and that is out there. Schools, without question, are asking themselves, how are we going to increase our relevancy? I just spent the morning with the campus leadership at CU Boulder talking about how are we going to increase the graduation rate percentage of our students that go through our system. And, the standard metric is 6-year graduation rate. And many schools have a very poor record on that. And CU is putting a lot of attention in how they're going to do it. The disruption in this case for them has a lot to do with disrupting behavior, getting faculty to play a role in helping kids, helping students step up and being able to see that they can get through this, versus what often happens is faculty frustration that the wrong kids, quote unquote, are being admitted. So there is a sea change going out there right now in terms of schools trying to evaluate how are they going to increase this concept of student success. The concept of disrupting yourself, I think, is an important one that schools are examining. And I think Christensen's point that is going to play out is the institutions, large and small, that don't learn how to adapt their programs to increase their relevancy and in many ways figure out the right model that allows them to thrive economically, they are going to be disrupted by the other schools that have figured this out. So I'm not so sure it's about a technology that's going to disrupt higher education. I think it's going to be the schools that embrace disrupting themselves are going to disrupt the schools that haven't figured that out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's exactly my point. It's when you wake up in the morning and you think to yourself, am I going to be an active participant in the disruption at my institution in order to make something better? Or am I going to have change foisted upon me in a way that is not agreeable? Because if it's foisted upon you, it's largely not agreeable. Right.
That's right. That's right.
And so when you look at what these naturally disruptive innovations that come from sort of the low cost players that are coming into the market, much of what I think is so challenging is that you have a traditional ed natural response of what they're doing is not who we are. Right. So what they're not who we are. They're catering to an audience that is not our audience. I would say likely the crossover in that Venn diagram is probably larger than you think. The people that are going to looking for more of a just-in-time approach to education, looking more of a convenient approach to education, either if it's online or if it's on ground, whatever, but give me access and ability to get myself educated when I need to be educated, we're going to go to whoever steps up to the mic with a product that fits that bill. And so
that's right.
That becomes so much of the disruption, right? Is do we have the ability at our institution to embrace that new way of thinking, to get our academic side of the house to say, yes, I think we could actually craft a product that teaches people when they need to be taught. I think we really could do it online in a way that still lives up to our standard of credibility.
And just this past couple of weeks, the Chronicle had a whole section on credentialing, and the fact that it's becoming more understood that a piece of paper that says what your degree is on it is an insufficient measure of what those who are hiring people into whatever careers want to see about their skills. And the reason this is causing the disruption and is going to bring more of that concept of being able to demonstrate through badges or credentials a certain kind of ability. The reason this is going to take more hold is because more and more the story from people out in industry inheriting college students is the perception that they're not prepared. They don't write sufficiently. So there is feedback from those outside, and it's making its way into the institution saying, we, as much as we got these great programs, we got to find a way to demonstrate, give these students an opportunity to demonstrate back to those who will be those hiring them that they are qualified for the jobs. And a piece of paper that says you have a BA or an MA does not in itself demonstrate that. And schools are figuring out how to inherit this. So I think the hybrid that's playing out here in a fascinating way, which is I don't think the for-profits are going to take over. I think that the for-profits are pushing the nonprofit institutions to figure out how to offer within their current domain of a residential campus experience or of a community college, how to offer a more, as you said, modular approach. So if we have to give students a just-in-time education, we're going to do this. If we need to offer a 3-year college degree and really have that reduce the cost of our education, that has a huge ripple effect in how faculty have to think about their programs. But it is making its way through the industry. So, it's funny. In some ways, I come full circle in this conversation because in one breath, the Chronicle, if you read this superficially, it looks like maybe this is a fad that's passed. I think the disruption concept is going to evolve, and it's going to evolve as an internal conversation versus look outside of ourselves and saying, look who's going to take over. It's not like, we all thought the libraries were going to go away. That didn't happen. Libraries are evolving.
You
right?
only think libraries are going away if you think that a library's core product is books.
Right. Now the core product of the library, and they're shooting up everywhere on college campuses and public domains, is these are communities. Mm-hmm. These are places you go and you can be in a community environment, and they're taking their books and they're moving them out, and these are places that you can come and connect with others on important ideas.
And I think that's part of the solution. I think we're in violent agreement, right? I mean, I absolutely think that so much of this discussion is all about the institutions taking an active role and ownership of the disruption and not being disrupted upon. I think that's the big lesson for me. And I think as an example, I mean, how many times have I been in this conversation personally, which is, you bring up writing and the challenge of teaching writing online, having people who graduate from online programs who can't write. It's not just online that this is happening. It's happening because we write less culturally. We write less today than we did before, right, in years past. But that is not a challenge of delivery. It's not a challenge of modality. It's a challenge of sort of the academic approach to writing. Do we have, are we teaching it the way that it needs to be taught? And too many times I've had this conversation with administrators that says, the people who pay the bills, we've got these companies who say, you're sending us graduates that can't write, so this program might not be good, and so we have to cancel the program. But that's not what it's about. It's about coming up with a creative approach to address this particular symptom and not to just give up on a whole new bit of disruption that may ultimately be very healthy for us as a people.
Well, it's funny. In the end, part of my session today, I was talking about headlines, and I think in some ways what's brilliant about disruptive innovation is what's got legs around that is this idea, whether you are thinking about disruption from the outside or you are being intentional from the inside. This is something that has made its way into our lexicon, and I don't think that's going away. I think the conversation may evolve. I think it's too black and white to think. Matter of fact, Christensen's contribution has been made and continues to be made, and I think it's going to be up to institution leaders to say we need to keep figuring out how we are going to disrupt ourselves. I think that, and what I love about this, Pete, is that that's a message I know if I was in front of a group of leaders, if I said that today, if I'd done the podcast before I got in front of this group, everybody would have heard it. And it's a great open question. How are you going to disrupt yourself? Man,
yeah,
that is the central question in the question about the economics models project that Nakubo's doing, the questions that faculty are thinking about, trying to figure out how they're gonna balance research and teaching, the questions in terms of student success. It's all about being willing to go. In a sense, what it is, it's moving from complacency to engaging in the question deeply. In many ways, what Christensen's done is he's given people a wake-up call to not focus on business as usual. We're so good to point out the things that we've done. Today I said to the group, By the way, they've done some great things here. And I said, listen, at your table now, what I want you to do is I don't want you to talk about all the wonderful things you've done. What are you going to do from this point on forward that is going to have an increasing impact on student success? Because I can tell you, if I had asked the question in a very sort of generic way, people would have pointed to what they're doing. And what we have to keep doing is we have to keep pushing people to figure out how they're going to continue to peel the onion and, as Christensen's been talking about, disrupt themselves.
I love it. I love that whole concept. I was thinking about it again back from an academic perspective, and then I'll finally shut up on this topic. But I think I told you some time ago I participated in a connected courses co-learning environment with faculty from all around the world on how to become better teachers online, and that has become it was spearheaded by guys like Jim Groom and Howard Rheingold. I mean, these sort of legendary folks in the higher ed, broader higher ed sort of academic community. They're just fantastic, and I think it addresses the core question: how, when you wake up in the morning as an academic, as an instructor, how are you going to learn to become a better teacher, no matter what the modality is thrown at you, so that we can make all learning equal learning. And I think that same question, when I'm in this MOOC with thousands of other educators who are all striving to answer that question for themselves, I'm forced to ask that question again of the administrators who are saying, how are we going to do the same thing for our campuses? What are we doing today that's going to make this campus better fit learners of tomorrow?
That's right. That's a great point. One of the unintended consequences of this is that the other group that reads the Chronicle are trustees, and I just happened to notice one of the comments at the bottom of this article. It says, "Alas, the debunking is coming too late to slow down the higher ed trustees who blindly believe mantras of disruption and hire CEOs with no understanding of education as saviors." And what's interesting about this, I think that is too broad brush a stroke, but there is absolutely something to be said for trustees or boards looking at these corporate concepts and saying, we have to hire leaders who are the equivalent of a CEO and treat higher education like the disk drive industry and reinvent itself in that way. And in some ways, I think this is getting the right CEO makes a lot of sense and is critical, because the job of a college president, university president, or chancellor is, in a sense, what a CEO has to do. But I think we've got to be very careful to not buy into concepts so blindly that we don't keep the mindset of what we're really trying to do here.
Yeah, I was on mute for just a second because I was screaming at the top of my lungs when you read that comment. The whole point and the part of the reason we work in academics is because we tend to be people who are particularly adept at taking discrete bodies of information and integrating them into wisdom. And that is, I think, I think that may be a shortcoming of board thought that is outside of my experience. But if that is really happening, that's a discussion we need to have with some board guests, because that would be a horrible thing, and I hope it's not happening. But it probably is somewhere.
Well, it is happening somewhere, because there are too many institutions to say that this is not a trend in some places. Yeah. That's why an organization like AGB is so critical, to raise the level of understanding of what it means to engage in academic topics and not think about this purely as a business.
Fair enough.
But you're right. That is for a topic on another day. So I'm sitting here surrounded by our future, Pete, and it's pretty exciting. I sit here. It is really exciting. What do you think? Would you want to go back to college at this point?
Oh, hands down, yes. I'd be so good at it now. Are you kidding?
Yeah. But think about all the maturity that you have amassed that since when you were a college kid.
I was
right?
I was an idiot. I was a plumb idiot.
I didn't know you then, but I'm not. It doesn't make. I don't quite see how you've changed that much.
Oh, nice. I see where we're going. Okay, that was good. Okay,
You set me up for
Wrapping
that.
up.
I was. No,
hang on. Let me pull out my book of old man jokes. Hang on. This was, in spite of your close, this is a great conversation, Howard. I'm glad you brought this up. I'm glad you sent me this article to read, and I think it's one we're going to need to talk about in the coming weeks.
I think both of us are better off for it, too.
Yeah, certainly better people. Some better off than others.
And hopefully people listening to this feel like this was something that they can bring back to their institutions.
We will post the link in the show notes at teibelinc.com, and we'll post it on our Twitter feeds too. This is the link we talked about today, so be on the lookout for that, at Howard Teibel, at Pete Wright. We'll forward that out today as the show goes live. So thanks, everybody, for listening. On behalf of Howard Teibel from lovely Boulder, Colorado, I assume you're heading off for a swim in the buffalo-shaped pool this afternoon. Is that accurate?
How do you even know? That is the funniest thing. I just saw it for the first. I've been coming here for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
I just saw it today for the first time, and I took a picture of it.
It's fantastic.
I'm going to send you the picture that I took, and I want you to post it on the website.
I will post it. I will absolutely post it on the website.
Oh my God, it's nuts!
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
That's a legacy project right there. It's a buffalo-shaped pool. All right, we got to get out of here.
We got to go.
On behalf of Howard Teibel, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week on Navigating Change, the podcast from Teibel Inc.